All right. Well, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Obviously, we have been encouraging the governor to sign the tax bill, which is a very bipartisan bill that we have sent to him. A lot of really good things in the bill to help Minnesotans from every walk of life and every corner of the state. So we're very strongly encouraging the governor to sign that bill. And we know that the governor has heard from us. But we'd like him to hear from some of the folks who are affected by this bill. So we've brought some folks together this morning, veterans, farmers, parents, folks affected by natural disasters, lots of different folks from all over Minnesota that have a vested interest in making sure that this bill gets signed into law. So without further ado, I'll introduce a few of my members who have some guests here that will speak a little bit about the reason that this bill is so important. So first we'll start with Tony Cornish.
Hi, I'm Representative Tony Cornish, and part of my District 23B includes Medelia. Most of you folks know that there was a devastating fire in Medelia in early February, and they really need some help down there. Not too long ago, Governor Dayton came to Medelia, and I, along with city and county leaders, welcomed him there, and he told us at that time that I was sitting a few people down at the table that he would do anything, him and his staff would do anything possible to help us. So now we are calling on Governor Dayton to fulfill that, and please help us out by signing the bill. And I've brought along with me Ryan Vischer, the owner of Hope and Faith Floral Shop, one of the buildings that was devastated, and he'll tell you something about the importance of this bill to him and his friends and family. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Cornish. That fire was a very devastating fire, and everyone had a part to do to recoup from that. Small towns have a way of disappearing. You go through many small towns and you see blocks of buildings that don't exist anymore, and it's oftentimes because of fire or businesses that weren't viable, and the buildings just deteriorated. In Medelia, our main street was full. We lost 8 buildings, and all those buildings had viable businesses in them. And so we looked to Senator Rosen, Representative Cornish, Representative Gunther, and asked what can help us do this? Because no developer is going to come into our town to develop that area. So it came up to us, all 4 of us landowners, to redevelop that, to use all of our insurance proceeds and make it whole. Problem with that is that the insurance money will build the building, but now we're going to have a building valued at 5 times, 6 times greater than what it was originally. And we probably can't pay the taxes. We'll have a great building that isn't viable for us. And so they came up with a plan to give us some tax relief. And both houses and both parties supported that. And it got to the governor's desk, and the governor was down, and he said that he would help us. And he hasn't yet. And it's unfortunate that being in outstate Minnesota that we're being held hostage to some things that will affect Metro Minnesota. So we just hope that the governor makes good on his word and he signs the bill so that we can start to rebuild our Main Street. That's what I have to say.
Next, I'll have Representative Cindy Pugh introduce her guest.
Mr. Speaker. Yes, I'm State Representative Cindy Pugh, House District 33B, representing Chanhassen, and 9 of the 16 communities around Lake Minnetonka, from Deep Haven on the east, the South Lake Minnetonka area, up to Mound on the west. And I've brought with me today 2 of my constituents, Korean War veterans Wayne and Wendell Carrier, who will benefit significantly, as will all veterans in the state of Minnesota from this tax bill. And they each have a few things that they would like to say, and so I would like to introduce them at this time. Wayne?
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. It's a beautiful day. I'm Wayne Carrier, and I live in Mound, and I've lived there for many, many years. And I had a family, but now I'm more involved with the chapel at Fort Snelling, and it's a chapel where the veterans are appreciated and welcomed, and so we have gravitated to that location because we feel there's a lot of support there. We just got some figures up to date. As much as 2014, there are 369,000 plus veterans in the state of Minnesota. And this bill that's standing, waiting for the governor to come in and sign it, which I'm sure he will. The veterans, we understand, will benefit by $13 million in tax relief for Minnesota veterans. That means it goes from, if your eligibility threshold, it increases the total veterans to tax credits from $750 a month to $1,000, and we can use every bit of that. But it's really fun working with Cindy Pugh, believe me, and so we appreciate it.
I'm the other half. My name's Wendell Carrier, and I was in the Air Force during the Korean conflict, but also during the Cold War in Europe. I was with a Air Force unit that went out taking pictures of all the Russians and what they were doing, and got to see parts of Europe and Germany that were still all rubble from all the bombing, and it was really terrible. But I did want to comment about us veterans are on fixed incomes, and the government somehow has found a way to recalculate our COLAs, so we end up getting practically nothing. And people should be, that are just going on retirement, will lose as much as $19,000 to $20,000 because of this recalculation. So we need to have the governor sign that bill. So thank you very much.
Next, I'll introduce Chairman Greg Davids to introduce his guests.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and just remember one thing, folks, don't stop believing. With that being said, I have some friends of mine from Fillmore and Houston counties that would like to make a few remarks on why this tax bill is important to them, and then I'll wrap it up before we stand for questions, of course. I'd like to start out, I've got two farmers, one from Fillmore, one from Houston County. They'd like to make a couple comments. If you could come up.
Good morning. I'm Scott Winslow from Fillmore County, Fountain. And this bill would mean a lot to us. We have some very high tax bills that we've been dealing with. And, you know, it means it's hard to pay for everything. It wasn't so bad when corn was $7 and beans were $14, but today with corn at $3.50 and milk prices have dropped considerably amount, and farmers are really struggling, and a 40% savings on our tax bill to keep the schools running. You know, we rely on these small schools. We got to have these small schools. You got to keep these small schools going. And some of these schools are very old. They need to be refurbished. They need to be new. They need to be rebuilt. And but the farmers can't pay the whole bill, and the small businesses can't pay the whole bill. So there's got to be a little more equal paying on it. And the House, the Senate have come up with a pretty good plan. And so now we just got to get the governor to sign it. And we're really hoping that he'll get that done today. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Steve Frichte from Caledonia in Houston County. The farmers have been paying an unfair burden of the school funding and the other tax bills. And this bill that Senator Davids or Representative Davids and the others have been working on will help a lot for the farmers. As Scott iterated, the commodity prices are low, but our input costs are increasing forever. The farmer is just getting squeezed out. And personally, my tax bill this year, my land value went down, but my property taxes went up about 10%. So it's really getting hard on the farmers, and we need to have a little help. So we call on the governor to help us with the school, egg to school credit that will help with the real estate taxes, and also with the school building egg credit to help pay for these schools. You know, our school was old and in tough shape. We had to build a new one, and but with the high taxes and everything, the farmers are paying a heavy cost on this, and we'd appreciate the governor to sign the bill. Thank you.
I'd like to bring forward, if I could now, two business folks in Caledonia, Chuck Schulte and Dan, if you want to come and make a few comments.
My name is Chuck Schulte. I'm from Caledonia, Minnesota. I've been in small business for 38 years. There is in this tax bill a relief, property tax relief to small businesses. What I think is essential, I have all kinds of numbers in my head and all kinds of things I can say, but there's one thing I can't get out of my mind. 89% of our legislators supported. I don't understand the problem here. I'm sorry, I wish I did, but I don't. But if 89% of them voted in favor of it, that tells me that we have bipartisan support. There's a lot of good stuff in this bill, and for it to go down for a lack of a governor signature seems kind of hard. And so I hope that the governor will sign the bill. Thank you.
And my name's Dan McGonigal. I'm also from Caledonia, and Chuck covered a lot of the business side of my side of the ledger. I guess I want to touch a little bit on my personal situation. Really is about my family. I have 8 children, so some of the reductions in the assistance that is offered to student loan debt. I've got two sons who are at the University of Minnesota. Another son who's in Winona going to college, and another son who's in Wilmer, Minnesota. So kind of a wide swath of the southern part of the state. It would really impact my family in that regard. And I also have young children, so some of the daycare and childcare benefits that are part of this bill is beneficial to me personally and to my neighbors, friends, my kids' friends. And Chuck really hit it on the head. If the support is there, I really think we'd really like to just see this bill move forward and pass.
I would now like to introduce Superintendent of Schools, Caledonia, Superintendent Ben Barton. If you could make a few comments. And also, well, I'll wrap up a bit here too.
Hi, thank you, Representative Davids. My name is Ben Barton. I'm Superintendent of Schools in Caledonia. We're in the business of education, but to have education, you need to have buildings for that to take place. And back in the year 2000, we were able to receive a capital loan, a maximum effort capital loan from the state of Minnesota. And our taxpayers have been taxed just that, at the maximum effort of 29% of ANTC. And of that, our farmers and our commercial real estate have shared an unfair burden of that. And sometimes that will tend to pit schools and ag owners against each other because of that unfair burden. We want to stand with our farming community, with our ag community, with our commercial community to support them, to fund our school buildings. And in this legislation, there is some debt forgiveness associated with some interest that will bring the fair portion to a more manageable level. And we stand by our farming community, by our small business community, with them to be able to share the load and come up with a better, viable option to fund buildings of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent, and I'd like to turn back over to the Speaker for a bit.
Next, I want to introduce, we've got some tax credits in this bill that help out college students and also parents saving for college. So I've got a college student that would love to visit with us, Nathan Dull, if you'd come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everybody. My name is Nathan Dull, and I'm a student at Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter. So within this tax bill is a first-in-the-nation tax credit. So what that means for me is students and everyone like me can see up to a $1,000 tax write-off by the time they graduate and begin to pay off their student debt. So, of course, I, along with many other college students in the same boat as me, encourage the governor to sign this bipartisan bill. Thank you.
Next, Dwayne Quam, you want to come forward?
Good morning. I'm Dwayne Quam from 25A, and in property taxes, we met with quite a few local government officials, and we have one here today from Atkin County Commissioner Donald Namey, and if you wanted to say a couple things, Donald.
Thank you. Just heard from Representative Drazkowski about this meeting here today, so I left this morning from Aiken County, home of the governor's opener. And if you read the papers, I think they tamed a couple of fish. I think he caught those. But anyway, on a serious note, a couple of years I've been down here and communicating with Senator Bach, Representative Drazkowski, very much on the state general tax and its effect on small-town businesses across the state of Minnesota. It's already been mentioned here today that many storefronts, the lights are off on the main streets. I used to be a county assessor. I was aware of this tax when it was implemented in 2002. I felt the need as an elected official to come down here and let people know the effect it's having on our small town businesses and small business across the state of Minnesota. This bill, when I saw that there is some relief for the first time since 2002 to these businesses across our state, I was elated. It proved to me, and it's a message to our fellow Minnesotans, that bipartisan politics does exist in our state. So I encourage the governor to sign this bill that has bipartisan support. Also, I couldn't serve in the military due to a handicap, but I am a strong supporter of our vets. So I speak for them from Aiken County, that they finally receive the relief that they so have earned. That issue also is very important. I see these elderly gentlemen come into the courthouse almost on a daily basis, realizing from World War II on, they have kept our freedom, and they deserve recognition, where we are sending a message: we will never leave you nor forsake you.
So with that, we thought it was important for you, for Minnesota, to hear how important this bill is. A couple of just closing thoughts on my part, and then I'll turn it over to Chair Davids. This bill is not a partisan bill. This is a bill that really was achieved through a lot of great work and a lot of great compromise by both parties in the legislature. It passed the legislature with 89% of the vote. The vast majority of Republicans and Democrats together not only supported this bill, but voted for it and spoke enthusiastically about it. It provides $801 million of tax relief over 3 years, with about $550 million of ongoing permanent tax tax relief. It affects families with children in daycare. It affects college students who will be paying off student loans. It'll affect parents who are saving for college. It'll affect our veterans, small businesses, and farmers, among many other people. And this isn't a partisan issue. It's not a partisan time, and it's time for the governor to sign this bill and provide this much-needed relief. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chair Davids.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's good to be here today. And this is the bill, House File 848, the Don't Stop Believin' tax bill. It's right here. And I was never a Boy Scout, but I was president of the Sumner Sunbeams 4-H Club, largest in Fillmore County at the time. And we were taught also to always be prepared. So for the governor, I have the bill here, and I have some other things here also. But first of all, I'd like to back up just a bit. Tuesday, May 24th at 2 o'clock, there was a press conference. The governor held a press conference at his temporary offices. And I was so relieved when he said, basically, I don't have the exact quote here, but that he was not going to take into consideration other bills when he made his decision on the tax bill and the supplemental bill. I went, okay, this is the best tax bill ever written in Minnesota history, according to Greg Davids. And so he'll sign it. Of course he's going to sign it. If you just looked at it, of course you're going to sign it. A few days later, I get a phone call from someone in the administration, and I was told there's a terrible glitch in the tax bill that will stop Western civilization as we know it. And it's because of one word regarding bingo halls. And I thought, you know, I can solve this one with half my brain tied behind my back. I said it's called a chairman's letter. And the legislative intent was clear. All the fiscal notes, revenue notes were all done on it just affecting 3 little bingo halls. So clearly, I've done it before. I'm good at it. We get that old chairman's pen out and we sign it, and life is good, and Western civilization remains intact. So looking at this, you know, in school, once in a while, high school, and I've told this before, sometimes my teachers would say, Gregory, today is not the day. Well, Governor, today is the day. Today is the day for your proposal that we took 100% on the working family credit. Today is the day. Today is the day for the child care tax credit, which Commissioner Bowerly and I had press conferences down in Rochester some months ago to tout the governor's idea on the child care tax credit. It's in the bill. Governor, today is the day. Today is the day for federal conformity. Today is the day for tax reciprocity. Today is the day for 529s, not only the credit, but also the subtraction that really helps middle class and low-income families on saving money for college. Very, very important. Today is the day, Governor, for the Davids College Loan Debt Relief Program, first in the nation. Today is the day. Today is the day for veterans benefits, for widows of veterans benefits on their property taxes. Today is the day. Today is the day for our cities all across the state for local government aid and county program aid. It's in the bill. It's in the bill. Eliminating part of the CI property tax for small businesses, a huge innovation in tax policy, a huge reform that will help every business in the state equally. Every state in the business gets the same deal. I call it house, garage, or 1 acre, but it's a school building referendum. Very big for school districts in rural Minnesota being able to build facilities for their children. Today is the day. Talked to the mayor of Mankato and North Mankato. Senator Scoy and I were able to get them to work together on some sales tax provisions. Those mayors, I can't speak for them, but I'm guessing they're thinking the governor, today is the day. Today is the day. The siding plant, and many, many local DFL, I don't even look at whose bill it is. If it's a good idea, we do it on the local things like local option sales taxes, those types of issues, they're in the bill. The siding plant on the Iron Range, jobs on the Iron Range. Governor, it's in the bill. today is the day. This is House File 848. Once again, being president of the Sumner Sunbeams 4-H Club. I'm prepared. The governor can sign it. And I remember one time when I was mayor of Preston, we built a fire hall. And in signing that motion, I took a pen, and for Gregory M. Davids, and I just have here M-A-R-K-B period D-A-Y-T-O, short here, and we've got the writing instruments needed for the governor to sign this document right here. So, Governor, 8 days ago in Preston, we dedicated the Southeast Minnesota Veteran Cemetery. And that would not have been there without you, Governor. And that was bipartisan, and we got it done. We worked together. 89% of the members of the House and Senate that represent the people of this great state said yes to this tax bill. I would like to encourage my good friend Governor Dayton to sign this historic piece of legislation. And I want to thank everyone who was affected by it that came up and testified. Medelia, you're in the bill. Veterans, you're in the bill. College student, first in the nation, you're in the bill. You're in the bill. There is no reason not to sign the bill. Chairman's letters, they're beautiful things. They're beautiful things. So all I would say to all of you in the press today, don't stop believing.
And with that, we'll take some questions.
Error happened.
I really don't want to go there, because what happened was someone in the revisor's office and the research folks got their signals crossed, and I'm not going to be blaming staff. We have wonderful staff, and this happens all the time. I think the speaker the other day was very clear where we do this all the time. It's called what's that bill called? Revisor's bill. What is the revisor's bill? The revisor's bill is to fix errors. Well, we can't do a revisor's bill, but we can do a chairman's letter. So, I don't know, I suppose I could dig down and find out which staff person didn't use the right word. I'm not going to do that. We can do this. There's no reason not to do this. And if somebody feels better, if there is a special session, or if we go into session January 17th, whoever is here representing folks at that point, we'll fix it. We'll fix it. I can fix it now. I can fix it now. So how did it happen? I don't know. But really, for this kind of a bill, to have a bingo hall in St. Cloud bring it down, that's nonsensical. That makes no sense at all. And it's not necessary. We know that. We're beyond that. But I'm not going to drill down to see which staff person forgot a word. I'm not going to do that.
Speaker, have you talked to the governor or anyone on his staff since you met with him on Friday?
I have not. And we did have a good meeting on Friday. The governor was not there for the entire meeting. He left for a birthday party for his son, I believe. We did have a good meeting, had a good conversation. I made it eminently clear that I believed the governor when he said he wasn't going to hold this bill hostage for other things. I think Minnesotans believed him when he said that. I frankly even think that he probably believed himself when he said it. So, and I think everybody can see what is going on now. The governor's trying to use this bill as some sort of leverage. If the governor wants to veto this bill, I think it would be an incredible shame. I think it would be letting a lot of people like these with us here today down in the state of Minnesota. The governor knows full well that this one-word problem can be fixed a number of different ways. In fact, when his staff reached out to our staff initially to report that there was a problem, they actually indicated that it could be taken care of administratively, that it wasn't a big deal. I think then someone realized, oh, this must be a big deal. And all of a sudden they tried to exert some leverage using this one word, and that's really unfortunate. So, I expect the governor to sign this bill today. You think think of the things like the exemption for the soccer stadium, the siding plant on the range, in addition to all the things that we've talked about here. This is a really good bill, and it's got really broad bipartisan support and helps a lot of Minnesotans. And I think that should be the test, not does it politically help someone or hurt someone. The test, the litmus test for me should be, does this help Minnesotans? Is it good for Minnesotans? And the answer on this bill is overwhelmingly yes. Does this bill help middle-class Minnesotans? And the answer overwhelmingly is yes. So we're continuing to encourage the governor to sign the bill, and I think he will do that.
You said Friday should you be talking to the governor today or talking to us?
I assume that we will be talking at some point today. That's when we left the meeting on Friday, we did say that we would get back together today. So we haven't set a time for a meeting, but we will be doing that. And again, I didn't come here to talk to you. We came here so that you and Minnesotans could hear from people affected by this bill and how important this legislation is. And it really is. And it took a lot of work and a lot of compromise to get to this position. And I would hate to see it go down because someone wants to play political leverage games with relief like this.
Whose idea was this, Ben?
We actually, our members had been getting contact from a lot of constituents in their districts about how important this bill was, and we decided, it's one thing for you to tell us. You've convinced us. We know it's important. We think the public should hear from you. So it was through that where we decided, let's get those people together who are contacting us and let them speak to the public.
Over here, sir.
Yes.
For clarification for myself, and an advocate maybe for you, what advice would you give the governor to make this one specifically happen, to end the holdup?
Well, I think the governor knows how important this legislation is. I think, last week I gave the governor some advice as to not overplay his hand. I hope that he's not looking at this as, he may have more power or less power or whatever. It isn't about that. I think that every one of us who is elected and has an election certificate to come here and represent Minnesotans understands how important that is, and we really need to put first what Minnesotans need and what's good for Minnesotans. And I think if the governor sets politics aside and really focuses on what's good and right for Minnesotans, he's going to sign this bill, and we're going to have a good conversation about the other things that are on his list. I haven't ruled any of those out. I don't like a lot of them. I think that's not a mystery to anybody. But we're going to talk about those things. If they're important to him and he thinks they're important to Minnesotans, we're going to have a good conversation about those. But I also am going to hold him accountable to his word that this bill won't be used as some sort of hostage to get leverage on other things. And those things are wrong. And to use relief for veterans or college students as some sort of political leverage, I'm sorry, I'm not going to play that game. And if the governor wants to play it, I can't save him from himself. And I think he's going to end up doing the right thing at the end of the day, literally at the end of the day. But it's going to be in his hands, Mr. Chairman.
If I could, Mr. Speaker, and to the gentleman's question, I think the governor should sign this bill because it's his bill. His proposals that I carried as a courtesy, many of those items are in this bill. If you would have ever told me that we would pass over $100 million for working family credit, I would have said that's not going to happen. You look at the conformity to make the department work better. You look at just the policy and technical things. Not everything's so technical in that bill. The department needs it. I took his provisions. See, in my world, there's three numbers. There's 68, 34, and 1. I have to have 68 votes in the House, 34 in the Senate, and 1 governor to sign it. And you know what? If you don't put part of the governor's bill in there, he's probably not going to sign it. But it's there. It's there, 68, 34, and 1. And being former president of the Sumter Sunbeams 4-H Club, I can count to 68. I can do that. I can do that. And so Senate provisions are in this bill. House provisions are in this bill. There was not one dissenting votes from the Senate DFL and very few from the House DFL. This is, because I had to get to the 1. I knew I could get to 68. I've got great support from my caucus. I knew I could get to 68. 34, a little more dicey. How do we do that? Well, we did it. And I give kudos to Senator Rod Skoy, my DFL counterpart in the Senate, and Chair Ann Rest. And the conferees on both sides were amazing. We had Swedzinski, Pulowski, Drazkowski, Barrettski, and Davidski. We had them all. We had them all. So the reason, to your question, sir, the reason the governor needs to sign this is because, number one, it's the right thing to do. It's many of his provisions are in there. Why? Because I need to get to that one. I need to get to that one.
Mr. Chairman, if there's a special session, are you willing to resurrect this bill, or if it gets vetoed, are you done?
That's probably a question for me now.
That's probably, I'll tell you what no, I won't tell you what I think.
You know, I don't even want to talk about that because we have committed to this bill. You know, it took a lot of work and a lot of compromise to put the bill together. I think the further we get from where we are right now, the more difficult it becomes to put an agreement together. I understand that the governor said he didn't want to hold this bill hostage. I also understand what it means when he says, you know, I will not call a special session unless you agree to every one of my terms. That's not compromise. That's not negotiation. And frankly, I don't think folks like these deserve to be put in that situation, and it's just really unfortunate. I think at the end of the day, the governor's going to do what's right. He's going to do what's right because he knows how important this bill is to people like those standing with us here today. You know, who knows what happens if he doesn't sign the bill, but I will say that it gets much more difficult for us to get things to agreement.
Why does it become more difficult?
Because the governor will have gone back on his word. And that to me is something that's difficult to repair in St. Paul.
Speaker, you folks keep saying it's a bipartisan bill. Maybe I'm missing. I don't see too many Democrats standing here. I don't see too many senators standing here.
I'm not sure because we didn't ask the folks that joined us here whether they were Republicans or Democrats. So my guess is that some of them are Democrats.
So why don't you have Democrats from the legislature here? Why don't you have senators here?
You know, we certainly could. I think you know, and I think you've asked Democrat legislators whether they support this. I think when we put up the votes, when 89% of the legislature voted for this bill, every single Democrat in the Senate, I don't think we have to remind you that Democrats support this bill. This isn't a partisan bill in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, we were contacted by constituents from our communities, and we decided, you know what, you've sold us. We know this bill is important to you. Let's let Minnesota hear from you. So that was the genesis of this press conference today, not to be partisan.
Mr. Speaker, the governor said earlier this year he wouldn't sign a budget bill without $100 million in broadband, without $100 million for equity. He signed a bill with $35 million for each.
The great compromiser.
Have you gone to the governor on this list of must-haves to see if there's wiggle room where the two of you can meet in the middle?
You know, we got into a discussion about that a little bit on Friday, and you know, I will let the governor's public comments and his letters speak for the governor, where he said he needed to have every one of his demands met in order for him to call a special session. You know, whether or not he means that, I guess you'll have to ask him. But I have also said that I'm going to hold him accountable to his word, that he wasn't going to hold tax relief for Minnesotans hostage to get other things, and now he's doing exactly that. Exactly that. There's no, you can redefine this however you want, but there's no way to look at this other than the governor's holding the tax bill hostage to get you know, more spending or more bonding or whatever it is that he wants. And you know what? I have always represented myself in St. Paul that your word has to mean something. And if it doesn't, you're not going to have a very easy time getting things done in St. Paul. And the governor gave his commitment not to me. I didn't ask him for that. He gave it to Minnesotans in a press conference when he said, I will not hold this bill hostage for leverage on other things. And now he's doing exactly that. So he's going to have to justify that with Minnesotans, and it's going to be very difficult for me to trust him if he can't keep his own word. And it isn't just a matter of you get to change your mind here and there. When you make a commitment like that you won't hold a bill hostage, and then you do exactly that, it becomes very difficult for people to trust you in the future. So I do have a good relationship with the governor. I look forward to working with him to not only resolve this, but the other issues that he cares about. And if they are important to him and he feels strongly about those being important to Minnesotans, we're going to have a great conversation about that. Notice how I haven't stood up here and said absolutely not. No, we're more than willing to talk to him. It's the governor who is saying, I won't hold hostage. It's the governor who is saying, I must have everything that I want before I will do X, Y, or Z. And that's not compromise. That's not working together, and that's not what Minnesotans expect.
Second question, do you not feel that the governor honestly feels that if he needs everything he wants, that's for the people of Minnesota? Do you not agree that everything he wants is good for the people of Minnesota?
Well, you know, I'm still hung up on the fact that he said he wasn't going to hold this bill hostage to get that one. So we haven't even really engaged a lot on, you know, the list of demands. I believe that he believes that those things are best for Minnesotans, but I also, you know, believe that, you know, when I watched Schoolhouse Rock, a bill becomes a law by passing the House, the Senate, and getting signed by the governor. So the governor can't be absent during the legislative session, during negotiations on the end of the legislative session, and then veto things and just demand that we redo the whole thing over again. I will remind folks, we got our work done. We passed a bill, a huge bipartisan bill that was, you know, took a lot of work and a lot of compromise to get to. And now it's sitting on the governor's desk. We did our job. The legislature did their job. Now it's time for the governor to do his job. And we will anticipate that later today.
Does your constituency believe, though, that he's wrong? As far as, I don't even know everything that...
We haven't even gotten into that yet, so I don't know, and I'm not here to address the governor's list of demands. This isn't about his demands. This is about whether or not it's the right thing for Minnesota to sign this bill. We believe that it is. We believe the people standing with us here today who were so concerned about making sure that this bill got signed into law that they took time out of their day to travel to St. Paul, some of them quite a distance, to make sure that you knew how important it was and Minnesotans knew how important it was that this bill gets signed. This isn't for us. This isn't for Republicans or Democrats. This is for Minnesota. And it's time that the governor put aside partisan politics and sign a bill that's good for Minnesota, that had 89% support in the legislature. It's time to get it done.
So what's next if he does veto or he gets vetoed today?
You'll probably see me tomorrow. I don't know. You know what? I'm so convinced that he will sign this bill because I'm so convinced that it's absolutely the right thing to do that I haven't even thought about what we will do if he doesn't. I just think it would be so wrong for the governor to veto the bill or let the bill die because of some partisan, you know, leverage game playing. I haven't even thought about it. But you know what? If he does, we'll tackle that tomorrow.
Any other questions from press?
Sounds good. Thank you all so much, and thank you to everybody for joining us here today. We're going to make sure we get this bill signed into law for you. Thank you.